The diner was quiet, the kind of place where the coffee was always hot and the booths had seen better days. An old veteran sat alone in the corner, his worn-out cap bearing the insignia of a forgotten war. His hands trembled slightly as he sipped his lukewarm coffee, his eyes scanning the room with quiet patience. 40 minutes had passed since he'd ordered. The waitress, a young woman with tired eyes, had rushed past him 3 times, serving other customers, laughing with regulars, but never stopping at his table. He didn't complain. He was used to waiting. At the counter, a group of businessmen joked loudly, their plates piled high with food. A family with 2 kids giggled over pancakes. No one seemed to notice the old man in the corner. Then, the door swung open. A tall, broad-shouldered man in an expensive suit walked in. His sharp eyes scanned the room before landing on the veteran. A flicker of recognition, then disbelief. The suited man strode across the diner, ignoring the stares. When he reached the old veteran's table, he stood silently for a moment before speaking. "You've been sitting here 40 minutes, haven't you?" The veteran looked up, squinting. Then, slowly, his face changed. A smile, small but real. "Captain?" The suited man's stern expression softened. "Still remember me after all these years?" Before the veteran could answer, the suited man turned toward the counter and called out, loud enough for the whole diner to hear. "I'm buying this place. Right now." Silence fell. Every head turned. The waitress froze, her mouth open. The old veteran just stared, his coffee forgotten. What happened next would stun everyone in the diner, and change one man's life forever. The diner was still frozen in silence. All eyes were locked on the suited man and the old veteran. The waitress clutched her order pad, her face pale. The businessmen at the counter exchanged confused glances. No one moved. The veteran slowly set down his coffee cup. His voice was rough but steady. "Captain, you don't have to do this." The suited man, now clearly a man of power, shook his head. "Yes, I do." He turned toward the diner's owner, who had just emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "I'll buy this place. Right now. Name your price." The owner blinked. "You, what?" The captain didn't hesitate. "Cash. No negotiations. Just tell me what it's worth." A murmur spread through the diner. Phones were pulled out. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" The veteran shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with the attention. He had spent years fading into the background, unnoticed. Now, the whole room was staring at him. The captain noticed his discomfort and lowered his voice. "You remember Iraq? 03? The old man's eyes darkened. Of course he remembered. Flashback, 20 years earlier. The desert heat was unbearable. Sand clung to their uniforms, their boots sinking with every step. A young soldier, now the old veteran, was part of a small unit led by the captain. They were on a routine patrol when the ambush hit. Gunfire. Chaos. Their Humvee was disabled. 2 men were down. The captain took a bullet to the leg but kept barking orders. The young soldier, barely in his 20s, didn't hesitate. He dragged one wounded comrade to cover, then went back for the second. Bullets kicked up dust around him. He didn't stop. When reinforcements finally arrived, the captain was bleeding badly. The young soldier tied a tourniquet, keeping pressure until the medics took over. Later, in the hospital, the captain had gripped his shoulder. "You saved lives today. That's what matters." Back in the diner. The veteran exhaled. That was a long time ago. The captain's jaw tightened. "Not to me." The owner of the diner finally found his voice. "Look, mister, this place isn't even for sale." The captain pulled out a checkbook. "Everyone has a price. The waitress, who had ignored the veteran earlier, suddenly stepped forward. "Sir, I can get his order now." "I'm so sorry, I didn't realize." The captain cut her off with a look. "Too late for that." The veteran sighed. "Captain, it's all right. She's just busy." But the captain wasn't listening. He was already writing the check. And the real shock hadn't even come yet. The scratch of the captain's pen against the check was the only sound in the diner. Every customer sat frozen, some with forks halfway to their mouths, others leaning in, eyes wide. A teenager at the counter discreetly held up his phone, recording everything. The diner owner stared at the check, his fingers trembling as he took it. His voice came out hoarse. This is too much." The captain didn't blink. "No. It's exactly what this place is worth, and what he's worth." He nodded toward the veteran, who sat stiffly, his calloused hands gripping the edge of the table. The waitress, the one who had ignored him, stepped forward, her face flushed. "Sir, please, let me fix this. His meal's on me. I didn't mean to." "You didn't see him," the captain said, his voice low but sharp. "That's the problem." A heavy silence followed. The veteran cleared his throat. "Captain. I appreciate this, but I don't need a handout." The captain turned to him, and for the first time, his stern expression softened. "This isn't charity. This is respect." The waitress's secret. The young woman's name was Lisa. She wasn't cruel, just exhausted. She'd been working double shifts for months, trying to keep up with her mother's medical bills. That morning, before her shift, the hospital had called. Another payment overdue. When the veteran had walked in, she'd been distracted, rushing between tables, her mind a blur of numbers and worry. She hadn't meant to ignore him. But the truth was, she hadn't really seen him, not the way the captain had. Now, shame burned in her chest. She wiped her hands on her apron and approached the veteran's table. "Sir, can I get you something? Anything. On the house." The old man studied her face, really studied it. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, the way her fingers fidgeted. He'd spent a lifetime reading people. "Coffee," he said gently. "Fresh, this time. And, you should sit down for a minute. You look like you've been running on fumes." Lisa's eyes welled up. No one had noticed that in months. The ripple effect. At the counter, one of the businessmen stood abruptly, his chair scraping. He walked over and dropped $100 bill on the veteran's table. "For your meal. And, thank you. For your service." Another customer, a middle-aged woman, followed suit, leaving cash beside his plate. "My brother served," she said quietly. "He came home, but, not really." The veteran didn't touch the money. He just nodded, his throat tight. The teenager recording suddenly lowered his phone. "Yo, this is going viral. You're, like, a hero or something." The captain shot him a look. "Put that away. This isn't for likes." But the damage was done. By now, half the diner had their phones out. And none of them knew the real bombshell the captain was about to drop. The hum of the diner had shifted from stunned silence to a low buzz of murmurs and shuffling feet. The captain ignored the phone still pointed in his direction and pulled out the chair across from the veteran. He sat down like a man who had all the time in the world. "All right," the veteran said, rubbing his temple. "You bought a diner. Now what?" The captain leaned forward, his voice dropping so only the old man could hear. "Now you tell me why you're really sitting in a booth at 10 a.m. on a weekday with no one but the ghosts in your head for company." The veteran's jaw tightened. He took a slow sip of the fresh coffee Lisa had brought him, hot this time, just like he'd asked. "Maybe I just like the pie." "Bullshit." The captain didn't blink. You were waiting. For what? For someone to see you. The words hung in the air between them. The veteran's hands, scarred and weathered, gripped the mug a little tighter. The breaking point. Outside, rain began to patter against the diner's windows. The veteran exhaled, his shoulders slumping just slightly. They cut my benefits last month, he said quietly. Some paperwork error. Been calling the VA every day. They keep saying, next week. He gave a dry, humorless laugh. Funny how quick they send you off to war, but when you come back, suddenly no one's in a hurry. The captain's expression darkened. So what, you were just gonna sit here until someone noticed? No, the veteran said sharply. Then, after a beat, maybe. Hell, I don't know anymore. Lisa, who had been lingering nearby pretending to wipe tables, froze. Her chest ached. She'd thought he was just another customer, another face in the crowd. But he'd been drowning, and she hadn't even thrown him a rope. The captain's move. Without a word, the captain pulled out his phone and dialed a number. When the person on the other end picked up, he didn't bother with greetings. Yeah, it's me. I need a favor. VA benefits for one of ours got screwed up. Names, he glanced at the veteran, who hesitated, then gave a small nod. Daniels. Harold Daniels. Fix it. Today. A pause. Then the captain smirked. No, I don't care whose desk it's sitting on. Move it. He hung up. Harold stared at him. Who the hell was that? Guy who actually runs the VA, the captain said, slipping his phone back into his pocket. We served together. He owes me. Lisa let out a shaky breath. Just like that, problem solved. But Harold didn't look relieved. He looked lost. That's simple, huh? He muttered. The captain studied him. No. But it's a start. The video goes live. Across the diner, the teenager's phone buzzed. His eyes widened. Dude. My video's already at 50K views. A woman at the next table gasped. Oh my God, that's him. She turned her screen toward her friend. That's the soldier who saved his whole unit in that ambush. There was a news story about him. Harold stiffened. He hadn't seen that footage in years. Hadn't wanted to. The captain stood abruptly, his chair scraping. Enough. His voice cut through the diner like a knife. This isn't a show. Put your damn phones away. But it was too late. The video was spreading. And so were the lies. The rain outside had turned into a downpour, hammering against the diner's windows like it was trying to get in. Harold Daniels kept his eyes on his coffee, but his shoulders were tense. He could feel the stares. The whispers. That's him, the guy from the video. They said he left men behind. No, I heard he got a medal. The captain's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then swore under his breath. Harold didn't need to ask. Let me guess. The internet's got a theory about me now. The captain slid the phone across the table. A news headline glared up at them. Local hero, veteran accused of stolen valor. Did he really save his unit? Harold's chest tightened. He pushed the phone away. Should have seen that coming. Lisa, still hovering nearby, clenched her fists. That's bullshit, she blurted. Heads turned. She flushed but didn't back down. You were ignored. I was there. Harold gave her a tired smile. Kid, the internet don't care about facts. Just drama. The stranger at the door. The diner's bell jingled. A man in a soaked leather jacket stepped in, shaking water from his sleeves. His eyes locked onto Harold immediately. Well, he drawled. Daniels. Heard you were playing the hero again. Harold went very still. The captain's hand slid toward his phone, ready. Lisa frowned. You know this guy? Yeah, Harold said quietly. He was there. The stranger smirked. Damn right I was. And I remember how that ambush really went down. The diner held its breath. The truth about the ambush. Flashback, 20 years earlier. Gunfire. Smoke. The stench of burning metal. Harold dragged the second wounded soldier, this stranger now standing in the diner, behind cover. Blood soaked through the man's vest. Hold on. Medics are coming. The wounded soldier grabbed Harold's collar. You left him. Jenkins, he's still out there. Harold's stomach dropped. He had gone back, twice, but the smoke was too thick, the gunfire too close. The captain had ordered a retreat. I tried, Harold choked out. The soldier spat in his face. You failed. Back in the diner. The stranger, now healed, now sneering, took a step forward. Funny how the news never mentioned that part, huh? The captain stood, blocking his path. Walk away. Or what? The stranger laughed. You'll buy me a diner too? Harold stood slowly. Jenkins was already gone. You know that. Do I? The stranger's voice rose. Or did you just tell yourself that to sleep at night? A glass shattered behind the counter. The owner, the ex-owner, now, had dropped it. His face was pale. Get out, he whispered. All of you. Just, get out. Lisa stepped between them, her voice shaking but clear. No. He goes. She pointed at the stranger. You don't get to walk in here and rewrite history. The stranger opened his mouth, then froze. Behind him, the diner's door creaked open again. A woman stood there, her face streaked with rain. Or tears. Harold, she whispered. Harold's breath caught. Jenkins' wife. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed like a trapped insect as Jenkins' wife stood frozen in the doorway. Rain dripped from her coat onto the checkered floor. Her eyes never left Harold's face. The stranger in the leather jacket took an involuntary step back. Maggie? What the hell are you? Shut up, Riley, she said without looking at him. Her voice was raw, like she'd been screaming for hours. I've been listening to your lies for 20 years. Harold's hands trembled at his sides. The captain moved slightly, ready to intervene, but Harold shook his head. This was his ghost to face. Maggie took a shaky step forward. You never came to see me after it happened. Harold's throat worked. I wanted to. But what could I say? Sorry your husband's dead and I'm not. You could have told me the truth, Maggie whispered. The lie unravels. Riley, the stranger, the liar, the coward, lunged toward Maggie. Don't listen to this bullshit. Daniels left him to. No. Maggie's scream shattered the diner's tension like glass. She whirled on Riley, her finger jabbing into his chest. You were supposed to be on watch that night. But you were hungover, sleeping it off in the truck. You were the reason no one saw that ambush coming. Silence. Riley's face turned the color of curdled milk. Harold felt the ground tilt under him. You knew? Harold choked out. Maggie's tears fell freely now. Not then. Not until last year, when one of the other guys finally got sober enough to tell me. She turned to Riley, her voice trembling with fury. And you've been harassing Harold ever since, haven't you? Making sure he never moved on? Because if he felt guilty, no one would ever look at you. The captain made a low, dangerous sound in his throat. Riley backed toward the door, but Lisa was already there, arms crossed, blocking his escape. Oh no you don't, she hissed. The diner's dirty secret. The ex-owner suddenly slammed his palms on the counter. Enough. This is my place, well, was my place, and I won't have this drama. Lisa laughed bitterly. Your place? You mean the place you were 2 months behind on rent for? She yanked her phone out, screen flashing with a bank notification. The captain's money just cleared. He owns these walls now. And I've been working here long enough to know exactly where you stashed all those unpaid vendor invoices. The ex-owner's jaw dropped. Harold stared at Lisa with newfound respect. The captain rubbed his temples. Christ. And I thought war was messy. The truth about Jenkins. Maggie reached into her coat pocket. Harold flinched, but she pulled out a faded photo. Jenkins, grinning in uniform, arm around Harold. Best buddies scrawled on the back in smudged ink. He chose to go back for that wounded kid, Maggie said softly. Not you, Harold. Him. And he'd hate what Riley's been doing to you all these years. Harold's knees buckled. The captain caught him before he hit the floor. For the first time in 2 decades, Harold Daniels wept. The diner had become something else entirely, no longer just a place for coffee and scrambled eggs, but a courtroom where the past was finally being judged. Harold wiped his face with his sleeve, the weight of 2 decades of guilt cracking open inside him. Maggie pressed the photo of Jenkins into his hands. He talked about you in every letter, she said. Said you were the best damn soldier he ever served with. Riley, still backed against the door by Lisa, let out a strangled laugh. This is bullshit. The captain moved like a storm front. 1 second he was at the table, the next he had Riley by the collar, slamming him against the wall hard enough to rattle the plates. You've got 3 seconds to apologize, the captain growled, before I let the internet do what it does best, destroy liars. He didn't need to elaborate. Riley's eyes darted to the phone still recording, the customers already typing furiously. A hashtag was born in real time, #Riley the Coward. The internet strikes back. A teenager at the counter gasped. Dude, someone just leaked his discharge papers. This guy got kicked out for negligence. Riley's face went slack. The captain released him with a shove. Funny how the truth always comes out, the captain said coldly. Lisa tossed Riley his soaked jacket. Get out. Before I post the security footage of you stealing from the tip jar last month. Riley fled, the door banging shut behind him. The diner erupted in applause. The captain's real mission. Harold finally found his voice. Why'd you really come here today, Captain? The captain hesitated, a first for him. Then he pulled a folded envelope from his inside pocket. Because Jenkins wrote you this. Maggie found it when she was clearing out their attic last week. Harold's breath hitched. The paper was yellowed, the ink faded but still legible. Hey brother, if you're reading this, I didn't make it home. Don't you dare blame yourself. That kid we saved? He's alive because of you. Tell Maggie I love her. And Harold, live. That's an order. Harold's knees gave out. The captain caught him again, lowering him gently into a chair. Maggie knelt beside him. He chose to run back for that wounded private. Just like you chose to save Riley, even though he didn't deserve it. Lisa's new mission. While the room was still reeling, Lisa climbed onto a booth seat. Listen up. Every head turned. As of today, this diner's got 2 new policies, she announced. 1, veterans eat free. Always. 2, we're hiring. And guess who gets first pick? She pointed at Harold. The captain smirked. You're good at this. Lisa grinned. Damn right. And I'm also giving myself a raise. Since, you know, I'm the new manager. The ex-owner spluttered. You can't just. The captain tossed him the keys. Clean out your office by sundown. The letter's last line. Harold turned the page over. There, in Jenkins' messy scrawl, was one final sentence. P.S. If Captain Stone's still giving you hell, tell him I said to buy you a beer. He owes me $20 from poker night anyway. For the first time in 20 years, Harold laughed, really laughed. The captain rolled his eyes. That cheating bastard, he muttered. But he was smiling. The diner had emptied of gawkers, leaving only those who truly belonged, Harold, the captain, Maggie, and Lisa. The rain had stopped, and weak afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, glinting off the freshly wiped countertops. Lisa slapped a set of keys into Harold's palm. Your first shift starts tomorrow. Don't be late. Harold turned the keys over in his hand. I haven't said yes yet. You haven't said no either, Lisa shot back with a grin. The captain poured 4 shots of whiskey from a bottle he'd pulled from behind the counter, found the owner's secret stash, and slid them across the table. To Jenkins, he said, raising his glass. To Jenkins, they echoed. The whiskey burned, but Harold welcomed it. For the first time in years, the heat in his chest wasn't just guilt. Maggie's gift. After the toast, Maggie reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn notebook. He wanted you to have this. Harold opened it carefully. Inside were sketches, rough but full of life. Soldiers laughing around a campfire. A sunrise over the desert. And page after page of faces, young men, some of whom never came home. I didn't know he could draw, Harold whispered. Maggie smiled. He only did it for you. Said you'd remember them better this way. On the last page, Harold found himself, younger, grinning, his helmet askew. Underneath, Jenkins had written. The best of us. The first hire. The diner's bell jingled. A gaunt man in his 30s hovered in the doorway, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. Heard you're hiring vets? Lisa didn't hesitate. Can you flip pancakes without burning them? The man blinked. I defused IEDs in Kandahar. I think I can handle a griddle. Hired, Lisa said, tossing him an apron. Start Monday. The captain raised an eyebrow at Harold. You gonna let her steal your job? Harold watched Lisa high-five their new cook. Nah. Think I've got something else in mind. The captain's confession. As the others bustled around the diner, Lisa rearranging the menu, Maggie helping the new guy fill out paperwork, the captain nudged Harold. Jenkins wasn't the only one who left you something. He pulled out a single key attached to a fob with a logo Harold recognized instantly, the VA's Vocational Training Center. 3-month culinary program. Starts next week. The captain shrugged. Figured if you're gonna run this place's kitchen someday, you should know more than just how to reheat coffee. Harold stared at him. You planned this whole damn thing. Nah. The captain smirked. I just bought a diner. The rest, that was always up to you. The last order of business. By closing time, the diner was transformed, not just in ownership, but in purpose. Lisa had already drafted a "Vets Eat Free" sign for the window. Maggie promised to come back every Sunday for Jenkins' famous pancake recipe. The new cook, name's Travis, sir, had scrubbed the grill until it shone. The captain stood by the door, his coat slung over his shoulder. I'm headed to D.C. tomorrow. VA's got a new director who needs convincing about policy changes. Harold didn't ask what that meant. Some battles were still the captain's to fight. You'll come back, though, Harold said. It wasn't a question. The captain glanced at the photo of Jenkins still taped behind the counter, Lisa's doing. Wouldn't miss it. The first sunrise. Harold locked up the diner that night, but he didn't leave. Instead, he sat at the counter with Jenkins' notebook, tracing the sketches under the glow of the neon "open" sign. Lisa found him there at dawn, asleep with his head on his arms. She didn't wake him, just started the coffee and began prepping for the day. When Harold finally stirred, she slid a mug toward him. Fresh. Just like I promised. Outside, the sun rose over the little diner, no longer just a pit stop, but a beginning.